Let's make some party streamers look like vintage ribbon. This is the easiest way to turn cheap into something that looks layered, handmade, and beautiful in your journal. Today, I'm going to show you how to hand dye your streamers, how to make ruffles with, and most importantly, without a sewing machine, and then we're going to use them in a few journals. I'm Ingrid Carlsen, and I am so glad that you are here with me today. A big warm welcome to you as we get started. I'm just taking some of this Dollar Tree ribbon, and we are going to make the most beautiful ruffles for your journal. There are several different ways that we can do this, but today I want to show you using some watercolor. So I have this watercolor palette. I think it's a Prima palette, and it's not one that I reach for because it's quite chalky. And so I want to use it up, and I thought the perfect way to use it was to make some vintage looking ribbon using my crepe paper. So I'm going to show you different ways that you can use your watercolors to dye this yummy fabric. And the best part is that the crinkles actually add all of the texture that you need. Watercolor is really great for this technique because it sinks into the crepe paper and it gives it a soft vintage look. These are really fun to make if you want to spend the day kind of doing assembly line work, and you can pick any color that you want, just match whatever journal you're looking for. I'm going to start off with this like kind of taupey color, and I want it to look a little like it's tea dyed perhaps, but the really great thing about the crepe paper is that you don't have to submerge it into the water. It really just holds the color really nicely, and it really does look like it is vintage and textured, and really there's very little work. With the first streamer that I used, I actually wet it down first. So we're doing a kind of an experiment here. We're going to do this, then I'm going to show you without wetting the paper first, and let me know which you like best. Also, I wanted to show you how I dry it because I think that is part of the technique. I want it to be crinkled, but I don't want it to be super crinkled. So I'm moving it around slightly as I'm drying it. This allows me to kind of straighten it out just a little bit, and then I can, if I notice that it doesn't have as many wrinkles as I want, then I can start crinkling it up more. A quick note when working with watercolors is that they will always dry lighter than you see. And so if you get scared that your color is too dark, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but always I say start off with a lighter wash. You can always go over it and over it. So in the second streamer that I'm showing you here, I'm actually not wetting the streamer down, but I am adding a lot of water to my paint in my brush, and you can immediately see that the color of the crepe paper is a lot darker than the first streamer that we made, and you're going to see once it dries that it is quite a bit darker. So really it's up to you what your intent is. If you want it to be more grungy, then I would definitely add more color, and if you want it to be a little more dainty and sweet and just have a slight tinge of vintage, then I would go a little lighter. This part is my favorite part because you can be as creative as you want. You can mix colors. You can do streamers that are two-toned. Maybe they have an ombre effect where they start dark and go into light. But all I know is that when you are done with these, they are going to make people stop and ask what they're made from, because they are not going to look like streamers anymore once the watercolor hits them. As weird as this is going to sound as it's coming out of my mouth, the drawing part was really fun for me. I really enjoyed being able to add the crinkles where I wanted and to stop them where I didn't want them. Also, crepe paper is really thin. It's very durable, but it dries really quickly. So this doesn't feel like a chore at all. It is very fun, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that once you start, I think you're going to have a bucket full of them. Another little thing that I like to do is at the end to add a little texture just throughout sporadically. I'm going to dip it into some color that's a little darker. Here I'm taking just the edges, and I love the way that looks because it really does give it that vintage antique feel, like it has been exposed to the sun and air and touching, and it really is a wonderful technique. And if you've been a little hesitant on making these, I want to encourage you today because there is absolutely no wrong way to do this. The paper is going to wrinkle and it's going to warp, and that's what makes it work. The more irregular it is, the better. On this streamer, I wanted to sway a little away from just those browns, and these kind of blues and purples were speaking to me. They came out so pretty, and again, what's really lovely about watercolor is since it does dry lighter, the color is ethereal and soft and dainty and beautiful, and you really can't even tell that it's blue, and so it really can be used in any journal. And as I'm watching this back, I was just thinking, you know what it would be absolutely fabulous would be to take some metallic watercolors and put them on the edges so that it looks almost gilded. That would be fantastic. I really love this process, but honestly, when it is done, it is fluffy and it's a strip of paper that wants to move. It looks like fabric that's been worn and softened over time, and really, there's nothing else that's quite like it. And even if you use just one color, it never looks flat. It dries like it's been hand dyed and weathered. You cannot tell that it is painted. In fact, it's soft, it's quiet, it's imperfect, and it's exactly the kind of material that makes your journal feel like it's been loved over time. And it definitely doesn't look like party decor anymore. It looks like something that you'd find in an old atelier tucked between lace scraps. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make ruffles 3 different ways. The first is probably the simplest, and also it doesn't require any special techniques or machines or anything. We are just going to grab some glue and start making ruffles. My technique for this kind of changed from when I first started to as I go along in the process. And I found that it might be a little easier to go ahead and crease your fabric first, so like you're making the fold, then add the glue on the underside of that fold. I think that it works a little bit easier. The way that I started off doing it, I ended up having to add a little bit of extra glue to the edge so that the ruffle would stay completely flat. And to give your ruffles just an extra support, I would then flip the ruffle over and just glue the underside of the ruffles. This is a step that is totally optional, and if you want to have more movement in your ruffles, then I would skip it. But I think that especially if you are making these in advance, this is a great step to keep because then they will stay put a lot better. And with a little folding back and forth and some dabs of glue, this embellishment starts looking fancier than it really is. And all you need is just a few steps. And honestly, if you don't have a sewing machine, this is just as pretty. And I'm going to show you at the end how I use this one. And really, you can barely tell the difference. For the second technique, we are moving over to our sewing machine. And this is kind of tricky to start, but once you get going and you get in a rhythm, then it goes pretty quickly. So the easiest way for me to do these is to just turn the fabric under itself so that when the presser foot goes over it, it's going to lay flat. And I do a couple and then I sew, and I do a couple and I sew. Sometimes it gets caught up where I lose the ruffle somehow, and then I'll just stop, make sure that my needle is down, my presser foot is up, and then I can add as many ruffles as I want. And as you get more comfortable with it, then of course you'll go a lot faster. This is at 4 times speed, so I'm definitely not this fast. But make sure that you are watching your fingers very carefully. And this part you can have fun with. So the tighter your folds are, the more volume it's going to give your ruffles, and the looser ones are going to be a little softer and more organic. But look at how sweet this is. Our third type of ruffles are actually going to be sewn ruffles as well, but this time I'm going to add an extra layer of stitching. So I've already stitched down kind of the center, and I'm going to now pick one of the sides and add another row of stitching down the side. This is going to give like a little tunnel through in between the two stitches where you can cut and now have 2 sets of the ruffles. Now you can see here that my ruffles are definitely not perfect down the middle, but it's not going to matter. They're beautiful either way. And if you want to change things up even more, imagine changing your thread color a little bit, adding some browns, reds, blacks. That would be absolutely stunning. And as a matter of fact, if you don't have a sewing machine, you can still add some hand stitched stitches to your ruffles, and I think those would be darling. I think the inconsistency of the stitch length would be so beautiful and vintage. I absolutely love that idea, and I'm definitely going to try it out. So here I am just taking one of my journals that I've made recently, and if you haven't caught that video, I'll have it linked down below. But look at how beautiful it is, like the cherry on top. It is just the right accessory for the edge of this journal, and it really just gives it so much life. I love the idea of adding that second stitch line so that I can cut my ruffles in half, because two reasons. One, it gives me 2 ruffles for the price of 1, and so that's always a plus. But then also, I love the little tiny ruffles. I think that there's just something that is so dainty and sweet about them. I wanted to show you using the ruffles on projects that I've already done, and that was because I wanted you to envision taking a project that maybe you've already finished or you thought you finished, and then adding one extra little accessory. So these would be really great to batch make ahead of time. And like I said, you know what I think would be really pretty is adding them to a glass jar somewhere where you can see it all the time. Even if you don't have a craft room, you can add it maybe in your bedroom where you can see the beautiful little ruffles, and I think they would brighten up any day. Well, I hope that you were inspired today and that you go and make some of these right now. You are not going to regret it. You're going to love them, and your journals are going to love them. I want to thank you so much for all of your love and your support and all of your comments. I'm trying to get through them, but I am so behind. But I do want you to know that I appreciate every single word, even if it's something that we don't agree with. Just thank you for taking the time to leave a comment. And I wanted to remind you today, in case no one has told you, you are beautiful. You're stunning. You're gorgeous. You are loved unconditionally, and you are stronger than you know. Until next time, love you. Bye.